Hello, and welcome to another episode. The most straightforward type of astrophotography is landscape photography of the night sky. In this episode, I'm going to cover how to get started in it. Fortunately, over the last few years, astrophotography has become much more accessible to the amateur, thanks to the improvements in mobile phone camera technology. Landscape astrophotography involves taking wide-angle images of targets like the Milky Way, Andromeda Galaxy, planetary conjunctions, constellations, and much more. In order to do landscape astrophotography, your camera needs two essential components: the ability to set an exposure length of at least 10 seconds. This is how long the camera will have its shutter open, absorbing information. A longer exposure will increase the detail and brightness of the image. The second ability that is required is being able to change the ISO of the exposure. This is how strongly the camera responds to light. A higher setting will increase the brightness of the image, but also increase the noise. A good setting for the landscape astrophotography is between 1800 to 3200. This will involve a bit of trial and error with your camera to ensure you're not introducing too much noise. For cameras where you can choose the lens, you want a fast aperture of f2.8 or less to let in as much light as possible. Another important feature is manual mode. This lets you not the camera do the focusing, which can often be important as many cameras will not focus properly on stars when using autofocus. When focusing, try to focus the stars so they're as small as possible. So, when you have got your camera, it is a good idea to mount it on a basic but stable tripod. This will allow you to point the camera in the direction you want. Of course, for a mobile phone, you will need an adapter to make this possible. From what you've read so far, you may be under the impression that you should just set the ISO and exposure to the highest possible setting. Unfortunately, this will result in star trails as the stars move in the night sky. It will cause corresponding trails in your image. A good rule of thumb is to divide 400 by the focal length of the camera's lens. Note this used to be 500, but with the ever-increasing camera sensor sensitivity, has dropped down to 400. Once you have taken a photo, check to ensure the stars are still points by zooming into a single star. If they are appearing as small lines still, then you need to reduce the exposure length. One obvious way around this issue is to use an expensive star tracker to move the camera in sync with the stars. However, as this is only an introduction to astrophotography, a cheaper alternative is to take the longest possible exposures without creating star trails, and then combine each individual image together to create a combined image with greater detail and a longer total exposure. If you're capturing the Milky Way, you need to point south in the northern hemisphere and directly overhead in the southern hemisphere. The best time of year to capture the Milky Way is from mid-March to mid-October. Remember that sometimes the Milky Way will appear in your photos, but not visually if there is too much light pollution. Post-processing on the computer can be daunting for some people, but the approach I lay out here makes it as easy as possible. The first step is to use Sequator. This simplifies the process greatly and makes it easy to produce great results. Start by loading all your images into Sequator by double-clicking on the Start Images option on the left-hand side. You can also create noise images by using the same ISO and exposure length as the main images, but with your lens cap on. This can then be added on the noise option and will help you remove noise from the final image. Then select an output image to save the results to. I would choose the TIFF file format as it keeps a lot more detail and can be easily edited in GIMP, which is downloadable for free. Next, choose a composition from the options in the bottom left of the screen. Here you want to align the stars as we are trying to produce a landscape image. If you have ground features in your image, I would suggest that you use the freeze ground option. Then select the sky region and then choose an irregular mask and paint the parts of the image that is the actual sky. I usually turn on auto brightness, especially if there are a lot of images, as this will stop the image becoming overexposed. I also turn on reduce distortion effects, remove dynamic noises, and reduce light pollution, but you can always do a bit of trial and error here. Then press start to start stacking. Once the image is complete, open the image in a photo editing application like GIMP and go to the levels. Here you want to move the extremities of the levels closer to the actual data, being careful not to wash it out. I also usually move the black point after I've done to perfect the image. So here you can see the difference between the 8-second exposure and the final combined image after post-processing. Well, that's all for another episode. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have any comments, please do leave them below and I'll do my best to answer them. If you like this video, please do give us a like, it really helps out the channel. And if you'd like to see more astronomy videos, then please do subscribe. Goodbye and clear skies.